So much for all my rehearsal. As I was saying, it's my pleasure to be your host and your moderator tonight. And it is especially my privilege to introduce to you my fellow co-founder, Mrs. Roxandra Ocatello. If you've visited our website and read our editorials, you know what a great asset she is. But Save Main Street is not just about we too. It's about 300 plus concerned Grimsby citizens. And we're here tonight to address some of those concerns. Now, this is our first as Save Main Street live event. And kind of difficult because we're in the middle of a COVID crisis. We would ask, and I can see that you're all well aware, you're probably all double vaccinated like I am, but please keep your distance, keep to your own social units, and play safe. We intend to run an informative, civil, and respectful meeting. This meeting is about the immediate concerns that concern us here in Ward 2, specifically the pending LPAC challenges for the properties that border Nels Road North to Wentworth. Two different developments, two different developers. We've asked our councilors, who probably need no introduction to you, Councillor Leanne Vardy, Councillor Dave Cadwell. We'll have 3 short presentations before we open it up for questions. And I'm going to introduce a lady to you right now that may be familiar to you because she's had a lot of press lately and has been in the paper. She has led a group that has similar interests to Save Main Street, also on Main Street, out a little further down the east end. So please help me welcome Ms. Annette Long-Gibbons.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to share my experience advocating for our neighborhood regarding the redevelopment at 314 Main Street East, known as Brandhaven Terrace. Our group advocated for responsible, compatible, and moral development. This development fell well short. The whole neighborhood was actively engaged throughout the entire process. We went to the open house and public meetings. We spoke up and voiced our concerns. Spent days preparing our presentations, providing charts, comparisons, and factual planning information. In the end, our public input was marginalized by the planning department to a few sentences on paper. The development was recently approved by the usual 5-4 vote by council, pushing through and approving what the developer wanted. Our group is now considering an appeal with the Ontario Lands Tribunal. We still have hope our voices will finally be heard and acknowledged. I live in Ward 1, and overdevelopment is affecting our entire town. We need to be aware of what's going on around us. Stay up to date with what's happening in all of Grimsby, not just your own neighborhood. Become engaged. Start asking hard questions and demand solid answers and action. Some councillors seem more afraid of being sued by developers than speaking up on our behalf and their constituents. If so, why did they run for election? And what is their motivation? Our planning department employs professional experts. If so, why are there so many instances of misleading, inconsistent, and what appears to be intentional roadblocks and withholding of information? It appears experts in our current planning department are misaligned with what citizens of Grimsby really value. In my opinion, they have aligned themselves with developers, pushing by any means to get things built. Heritage and the environment have taken a back seat. The citizens and taxpayers of Grimsby will literally be paying in the long run for this council and planning department's short-sightedness. Our town's heritage and small town feel is in jeopardy. There is something terribly wrong with the entire process. Developers are calling the shots, and seems as though the average citizen can do little to make any difference at all. Right now, our democratic right is being challenged. Enough is enough. This is the time to start making changes. We all have the right to have our voices heard and be acknowledged. I urge everyone to become involved early in any development application. Go to public meetings, open houses, read the studies, delegate and speak your concerns by attending council and committee meetings. Fine print is important. Send a written request to the Director of Planning for notification of any decisions. Otherwise, you forfeit the right to appeal council's decision on planning applications. There are many sources of information available free of developer influences. Consider supporting and volunteering in citizen groups like SaveMainStreet. Read and support news now. Participate on social media sites like Grimsby Community Talk or Grimsby Citizens for Responsible Development. Take action, get involved. Above all, vote. Quoting anthropologist Margaret Mead, I leave you with this thought. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. We have some distinguished visitors here this evening. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our mayor, Mr. Jeff Jordan, Regional Councilor Wayne Furtick, Ward 4 Alderman Dave Sharp. And I don't think I see anybody else. Oh, Mr. Vane, my apologies. Randy Vane, Ward 3, Councillor. We're in the middle of a COVID crisis, so how do you handle an open mic, especially when your remote mic fails just at the worst time possible? I'm famous for that. If you've seen any of my appearances on behalf of SaveMainStreet on Zoom meetings, I always seem to have technical issues. But we have a backup plan. We're going analog. We'll take your questions written, please. And I will be pleased to ask them of the councillors on your behalf. We have a couple right now, but we'd like you to have more questions. We have cards and writing materials available at the SaveMainStreet booth. If you didn't bring anything yourself, feel free to walk over and pose your questions. I'm going to turn the mic over now to our councillors. And ladies being first, I would invite Councillor Leanne Vardy to speak.
Thank you, Ron. And I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I really appreciate it, and it's a beautiful night for it. So, but it's really great to see everybody out here because it means that you care about what's happening to our town. And I think the worst thing that we could be, or the worst thing that we could do right now is to be apathetic. We really need to be active and to share our voices. So I've got a few remarks. They're really just a few, but there's a few things that I wanted to say. First of all, I am not against development. I am for responsible development. I am for the kind of development that respects what's already existing, and I'm for the kind of development that our community has asked for and that is articulated in our official plan. Because I think we have a great official plan. If we just stick to it, a lot of these issues would not be on the table. So, to my mind, I think responsible development is the major issue in Grimsby right now, and it's going to be the major issue in the future. We're at a crossroads. What we do now, the decisions we take now, are going to shape the kind of community that we are in the future. So it's up to us to be vocal and active so that people know what kind of community we want in the future. That's why it's so important that you're all here today, and why it's important for you when you go home to tell your friends and neighbors they need to get active as well. One thing that I want to say is that we need to invest in shaping our community, even if that means spending money for legal expenses to fight LPAT. This is not frivolous money like some IC complaints. This is very important, and it's the job of the town, and it's the job of the town to do that in order to represent the will of the people. So, you know, I was elected to represent the people, and I've taken that very, very seriously. I'm not here to do what Leanne wants. I'm here to be your voice at the council table. And that's something that is really profound for me, and I take very seriously. So I was elected to represent you. I was not elected to represent the planning staff. So you need to make your voices heard. You need to participate. You need to hold your councillors accountable today as well as in the next election. You know, when we're talking about planning, I know some people sort of take the staff reports from planning as sort of, you know, from on high. But the fact of the matter is you can get two experts, legitimate experts, who will completely disagree with each other. That's why it's not for us to just accept what planning hands down to us. We've been elected to make those decisions, to take into consideration what planning says, what the community says, and as well as some of the pressures that are also being pressed upon us by the province and the region. So that's our job, to synthesize all that, not just to roll over and do whatever developers want. And I'm not trying to paint developers as all bad guys or gals, because that's not the case. But what we want to do is we want to create communities. You know, we want to build areas that people want to live in, and respect the areas where people already are living in. And that's really important. So, you know, that to me, that's one of the fundamental things that we need to do. And just basically, I'm here to represent you, and please contact me anytime, by phone, my email. It's all on our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Vardy. We have some excellent questions coming. Please keep them coming. We've got 4 here, and they're going to challenge you. We'll now ask Councillor Dave Cadwell for his remarks. Dave?
Thank you very much, Ron, and thank you to the organizers of the event. We appreciate the opportunity to come out and see all the residents, and welcome to the residents, and thank you for taking your own time to come here and to listen to the issues, the concerns, and have a good conversation. I too also want to took my fire from me. I'd like to welcome Mayor Jordan and Regional Councilor Furtick and Councilor Sharp, and I can't see Councilor Bain, but I believe he's here. So anyway, I'd like to also welcome them to the event. So just want to start out with regards to the development. Been on council since 2006. The development, I've always tried to adhere to and support our official plan. Out in the West End, we've had a lot of high intensification out there, a lot higher than what our official plan and our zoning bylaws are asking for. So anyway, again, the expression, that ship has sailed for the Casablanca area with the intensification, the high intensification out there. Where I'm really concerned is any other type of high intensification development, especially in Ward 2 and other wards in the town of Grimsby. I voted against the DeSantis development. I did not support that. I didn't think that was the right fit for Ward 2. So anyways, again, just in regards to I've just got some notes here I want to read from. In regards to the property at 141, 147 Main Street East, these applications have been appealed by the prospective applicants on the basis that a decision has not been made within the prescribed period of time. No staff recommendation came forward to date, and no decision has been made by council. The applications, appeals have been made at different times or in different time schedules. Staff, council, legal representation, discussions have been mainly in-camera preparation. So I just want to give that update to the people that are here, just position of where we are right now with the Coles, I'll use the word Coles property application. So, again, I've been getting a lot of emails and calls too, and I am listening to the public. I just want to read out just a few concerns that some of the public have had about the 141 and 149 Main Street East Coles property proposed development. Over-intensification of the site. Proposed development is not sensitive to the surrounding house character. Proposed development does not respect or protect the small town character and feel of Grimsby. The proposed development does not protect Grimsby's culture and heritage. And the proposed development does not maintain the existing streetscape character of Main Street East. Those are all, I have the same concerns. I truly do. With any development that will be coming forward, again, as Councilor Barty mentioned, I'm not anti-development, but development is going to happen. It's all about having the right development for the residents of Grimsby. Thank you.
I'm going to try and do this with my own voice. I don't know how long it will last, but we'll give it a shot. I've been asked if you can ask questions in the same medium. By all means, raise your hand and we'll be happy to have you speak, and the appropriate counselor or counselors will respond. I'll start with the first question, and we have 4 or 5 already, so this may take us a while. This is the general question to you both. Can't hear you, Ron. Use the mic. Here we go. As concerned citizens, why is it so difficult to get information on why decisions are made?
The question is, why is it difficult to get information? Okay, I'm just going to that question, where is it difficult to get decisions? Is it from counselors? Is that what the person is asking? Or is it from town staff? Okay. Well, I can, and I'm always available to respond to constituents' questions and that. The only, if I get information, I'm always happy to pass information on. Sometimes information, we don't get it at the appropriate time. Some people think that we should be getting it as quickly as we do, because we're dealing with sometimes in closed session items and that takes a little bit of time to get all that information out. Personally, I find that from my perspective, to ask staff for information, they've been very good. They get back to me at a very good time frame, so and I try to get that information out too. That's the best I can answer that for now.
Well, I think that's an excellent question. I have 2 calls into staff this week that have yet to be returned. So I sometimes I wonder if there's 2 tiers of counselors, those that staff speak to and those that staff ignore. It's a little hard sometimes not to feel disenfranchised. But, you know, I found, and particularly I guess in dealing with planning, is that unless I ask a very specific question, I won't get any kind of an answer. And sometimes you need a lot more information so that you can ask those really important questions, but you don't have enough of a knowledge base. So, you know, you're kind of left hanging because you don't have enough information to be able to ask the questions that are really important and pertinent. So I know it's probably not a very satisfactory answer, but you know, I share your frustration in this regard because I would like a lot more information about various things that are going on. And you know, I've been stonewalled before. I mean, if we go back to the secondary plan, for instance, the original one for this area, I asked the people at the region if we could change the terms of reference because the region was cost sharing the cost of that secondary plan, and they said no, you cannot change the terms of reference. I asked the same question to one of our planning staff in a subsequent meeting, and all I got were evasive answers. No matter how many times I asked the question, rephrased the question, I just got you know, something that was very evasive and never a yes or no, until I was told I was picking on staff for being so direct. So, you know, I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer than that, other than it's very frustrating, and I often share your frustrations.
Apparently, I'm not as forceful as I once was. I was just handed a very pertinent question, which I'm going to move to the head of the line. It's a 2-part question. Why is Planning Department allowing 2 high-density proposals to continue when a Main Street East Heritage Conservation Study is ongoing? And second part of that question, why is the Planning Department not issuing a public report about these density proposals?
So the first question, why is the Planning Department allowing 2 high-density proposals to continue when a Main Street Heritage Conservation Study is ongoing? Well, in fairness to them, anything that was applied for ahead of that Heritage Conservation Study is allowed to go forward. So they kind of get grandfathered. That said, if way back in, I don't know when it was, February of last year, I guess, that this first came up, If council had supported the idea of I want to find the right term. An interim control bylaw. If council had supported the interim control bylaw, which I supported, the Losani project was not far enough along. It would have been included, it would have been captured. But here we are now, we're too far along, so both those proposals are already underway, so the HCD isn't going to apply to them. The next one is, why is the planning department not issuing a public report about these density proposals? I don't know, we'd have to ask the planning department that question. You know, one thing I think it's important to note is that in the official plan, this area is neighborhood commercial. That's the zoning. Neighborhood commercial means commercial to support the surrounding neighborhood. The height limit on neighborhood commercial is 8.5 meters. It's also commercial on the bottom with one level of residential on top. That is the current zoning. That was the zoning when the developers bought the properties. So to my mind, if you wanted to build something else, you should have bought something where it was more appropriate to put it.
Thank you. And I really can't add a whole lot more to the first part that Councilor Vardy did explain very well with regards to the density proposals with the conservation study going on. And the only thing I want to comment on is the hospital corridor study that was presented to us back last term of council prior to October of 2018. And that hospital corridor study was to encompass the areas of where the development now is being proposed. And that, unfortunately, that study was recommended by the region of Niagara. It was also recommended by staff, but at a council vote, it was turned down. So to me, I felt that study was very important to set the legends of the area here for the types of development we could have. So. It's unfortunate that did get turned down, and I think we tried to address it on another opportunity. But again, I think that would have helped us out a lot.
So here's where I strongly disagree with Councillor Cadwell. That study was the terms of reference for that study, which is what I was referring to before, would have zoned the area medium density. So medium density starts at 4 stories. And then because it's medium density is allowed to be augmented. So if we had gone with that study, our starting point would have been 4 stories. And the proposal for 7, not a big deal. It wouldn't have been very hard to go up from there. And that was the one when I asked the region, can we change the terms of reference? They said no. And I voted against it because that would have just opened the door to developers to put whatever they want there. And believe me, it wouldn't have stopped at 7 stories.
Thank you. And a related question, and this is referring specifically to the LPAT challenges that we're facing now. After a tribunal decision, does council still need to approve the development request? And I think we've already answered this question. What has happened to the East Corridor original plans? Those have been voted down. That was the secondary plan. The hospital corridor, yes, that was defeated twice, once by the previous council and once by this one. So again, after a tribunal decision, does council still need to approve the development request?
My understanding of the process from the former, the OMB now, which is LPAT, once a decision is rendered from the adjudicator, that we have to accept that decision. So that's my understanding of it, but I could be corrected on that, but that's the way I've always understood it to be. So.
Well, I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think that we would be able to appeal an LPAC decision. But that's, when I gave my opening remarks, that's where we need to make an investment in putting money towards legal fees in order to do just that. Otherwise, we completely lose control of our town.
We're getting excellent questions. Some of them are out of the scope of this meeting. This is a Ward 2 meeting, and I'm getting some questions for downtown and other parts of Grimsby. All of them very good and all of them very relevant. What we will do is we will pass these questions along to the councillors. We'll ask them to reply to Save Main Street in written form, and we will post those. Yes, ma'am, I see a question.
Did you want me to speak into the mic? I think I have a loud enough voice. No, you don't. No, I don't.
I didn't, so you may not have much of a chance either.
I don't know how many of you experienced the gridlock in downtown and all up through Grimsby roads today. There was a huge accident. The cars were flipped over between Bartlett and Ontario Street. The traffic was outrageous, and this is on a Thursday. Now, with what we've been hearing is that there's going to be further intensification on Main East, which is not zoned for intensification. And if we have these higher condos that will overlook all of the lovely homes that have been there first, how many other people are going to be in those high buildings? How is that going to impact the traffic? There's all been studies about traffic, and it's always saying, oh yes, we can handle it. It will not be handled on a 2-lane road. It will be an increase in traffic right by Nellis School, right by Park School. There are seniors' residences as well. Now, when you think further on down, outside in Ward 1 then, there's the Branthaven homes. How much more traffic will come from there? I'm thinking that parking and traffic is not adequate. I don't think that that will maintain our character and our scape. So I'm just wondering what, perhaps we'll start with Mr. Padwell, what he thinks can be done to prevent all of those negative things.
Thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you for the question, and I'm with you on the concerns of the development. Again, when the development comes forward, it has to also go through our upper tier government, which is the Niagara region. So again, the regional road 81 is not designed to handle an extra heavy load of traffic, I'll call it. Prime example was today. Yes, there was a 3-car pileup on the east side of Bartlett Avenue, and I was downtown. I honestly didn't think I was going to get here in time, but fortunately things got cleared up. But yeah, it's a problem with the traffic, absolutely. The more people that come to town, the busier it gets, obviously, too. So again, we have to work to get responsible development, and again, working with the Niagara region, and, you know, whether we have to they have to expand their roadways too, work on their infrastructure. So we can't stop development. I was at the AMO conference the last 3 days, and getting the word that the province is saying They want intensification, which I don't personally, I don't want the intensification that they want either. It's too much, especially for a town our size. But again, it's a tough battle. Again, with the LPAT, I know a lot of pressure is put on council, and I accept that for development. But also, I feel that the provincial government, they said when they changed the OMB to LPAT that they're going to listen to the municipal partners, which is the councils of the municipalities. But I don't feel that's changed at all. So that is the other challenge when we're dealing with developers too. So, thank you.
Well, part of me says I don't even want to go there because these buildings shouldn't be, this kind of density should not be put there in the first place. But part of the issue is when they do these traffic studies, they look at them as one-offs. They never look at them as like a whole plan to sort of see what is all the development that's going on in the area. And I think it was Councillor Frake who decided he was going to plot this out, and I think he found 15 different developments, in various sizes along that area, including the school and also infill. So I'm sitting there thinking, if you can't look at them as one-offs, you have to look at the whole picture. And then I add to that, well, we've got a hospital. It's going to have an it's going to have an emergency room that nobody's going to be able to get to, unless you can walk to it or ride your bike to it. And even then, it could be problematic. So I'd say those are the two biggest issues. One is that traffic studies people tend to look at them or developers that provide them tend to look at them in a very piecemeal. And there seems to be a reluctance on behalf of our planning department, because we've requested it before, to do a complete traffic study of what potentially could happen along Main Street East. So that's all I got to say about that.
If I could just add my own observation, traffic engineers are like accountants. You can always find one that'll make the numbers work. Question: why did council and the planning department allow the statutory plan to elapse so that the developers could appeal on the basis of non-decision? How will council assure that the town's wishes are heard at the LPAT hearing?
I was going to suggest that Councillor Cadwell answer this one, because it seems they talked to him, so maybe he has an answer. I don't know why their planning department did not meet the requirements. I mean, obviously, particularly the 7-story building, that should have been the biggest priority on our plate. And other things that were missed, we were supposed to have a public meeting on this. We had an open house, but we didn't have the statutory public meeting. So, and then now we're going to LPAT because council didn't take a decision. Well, council didn't take a decision because their planning department did not provide a report. So I'm afraid that's one of the questions I had, that I called our planning department, but they've yet to return my call. So I'm afraid I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you for the question. The best answer I can give you on that one is that Mr. Lasani, after he's seen how council voted with the DeSantis property, he just went directly to LPAT. So apparently there's in September there's going to be a conference hearing, they call it, to set a date for his LPAT submission there. I will try to get more information on that too, but I will reach out to Main Street East to pass that information on at this time. Thank you.
Again, thank you for these questions that are coming. They're quite involved, and we will not get to them all in any kind of detail tonight. We're going to run out of sunlight. Have the councillors or our planning department considered the impact of a 25% reduction in parking requirements in terms of how busy the parking already is at adjacent plazas, i.e. Life Labs and Shoppers?
Once again, thank you for the question. Parking has always been one of the strongest issues with the development. Again, these developers, they always want to seem to try to make the parking spots as less and make them as small as possible. So I know it's been discussed a lot by all of council with the parking, at least the developers meet the minimum parking requirement. Again, that has always been always a challenge on the first part of their application, but I feel strongly that all of council reflects to that when there's not enough parking, then pretty much don't even bring your development to the table. Thank you.
And that's something I agree with. I know that certain limits were not enforced in the past, but we recognize that parking is a huge issue in Grimsby, particularly sort of Winston Road area. So no, now we're quite insistent that we're kind of, I don't want to use the word inflexible, but it is a bit of a bottom line that there's sufficient parking, because we'll just compound the problem if we don't do that.
Why, if an area is not zoned for 4 to 5 story condo development, is there a threat for this kind of development? Second part of this question, can a council vote stop this? Part 2, is there pressure from the region that trumps the official plan? 3-part question, would you like that repeated? Because I'm a bit confused myself. Why, if an area is not zoned for 4 to 5 story condo development, is there a threat for this kind of development? Can council vote stop this? Is there pressure from the region that trumps the official plan?
There's definitely pressure from the region, who gets pressure from the province to get certain population numbers. We have population targets for Grimsby. However, we've already exceeded those targets for the next 10 years. So, to my mind, I think they should lay off us a little bit. The other thing is, when talking to the region, they said that, well, they want the density around where the GO station is. And I said, the problem with that is there's no land available right now around the GO station. I mean, we've got car dealerships and various other things. And the answer was, well, if someone offers them enough money, they'll move. But what's happened is then it puts pressure on these infills that we're seeing, like Brandhaven, like what we're seeing for Coles, like what we're seeing for the DeSantis property. It puts pressure to push the density there. And, so to my mind, what can we do about it? Well, we need to fight these things. We need, as I said, we need to invest in our community, and that means putting money for legal so that we can go and fight these things and push back. Like, to my mind, it's not reasonable to say you need to have density by the GO station when there's no property available by the GO station. So, and I know our plan, in fairness to them, I know, well, I'm going to say 2 things about planning staff. One, they feel the pressure from the region to intensify. And 2, I kind of think it's like, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So, planners want to plan. And so I'm guessing that it's part of their just sort of natural inclination, because they are planners. They want to see things built. So, you know, I don't know how those two things I guess those two things really play into it, but I think we need to be pushing back on the region a lot harder and ask for more reasonable targets. And when I raise this, that we've exceeded our targets, our targets 10 years out, we've exceeded. And the response I got from planning was, well, those are minimum targets. Well, why do we have to be the A+ student here and give away the shop? You know, I don't think that's right.
Thank you. I have to agree with Councillor Vardy with regards to density, especially when it started out at the Casablanca, the developments out there. Again, with the GO Station, the GO Station secondary plan that was put in place, I believe it was probably around the early part of the last term of council. I didn't support it because to me it was just too much density, because we've got most of the density now is on the north side of the QEW, which is fine, it's there. But I don't like the idea of taking areas, of employment areas away for high density residential areas. So again, I voiced my opinion back in the last term with regards to the GO Station secondary plan. Again, with the GO Station, it's just, and I agree with Councillor Vardy, there is not a lot of property there. Yeah, I'm thinking of the property that's next to the Rona store, the very short strip of property where the GO Station itself is going to go. So again, that's coming from the province. Their provincial mandate is places to grow. And again, all they want to do is go up. And I learned, just being at the AMO conference again the last 3 days, hearing that over and over. So it's, I don't like the intensification of that level. And also, Grimsby, we have met our targets. I feel very strongly about that. I was at a few meetings at the region with that, speaking to some planners down there. And again, Grimsby has met their targets. So, thank you.
We have another brave soul that would like to ask a question verbally. Veronica?
Yay, Veronica!
Okay, so first of all, you know I'm an admin for a social media group, Grimsby Community Talk. I do get a lot of, can everybody hear me? So I'm an admin for, Jennifer Stangy and I are admins for a social media Facebook group called Grimsby Community Talk. I encourage everybody here to join that. We discuss a lot of issues. The great thing about that is that I tend to get a lot of tips from residents in different industries that usually give me the heads up about different developments that are happening that our 4 council members do not know about, but 5 other councillors may know about. So there are a lot of developments that are out there. They haven't come to council yet. Some are being advertised on Kijiji. Others are rumor at this point, but there's more coming, and I'm not allowed to talk about that. But when we're talking about Main Street East, safety is very important to me. So we have 2 daycares, we have 2 elementary schools. Kids can sometimes come off the sidewalk, right? Like, they could be walking to school, they could fall off a bike, they could play around with a kid and go on the sidewalk. Do we want children getting hit by cars and dying? Because that's pretty important to me. So when you bring 2 massive condos onto the street where we're gonna have children walking and playing every single day, that's important to me. I wanna know if that's important to you as well. And is that something that you think about? I know that you are a grandfather. Is that something that's important to you? I know you're, and thank you. Firefighter, that's my second question, thank you. So the other issue, today we have this big issue on the highway, traffic everywhere. Apparently, emergency couldn't actually get to the people that were hurt, so they had to cut the fence. So that should tell you we don't have the infrastructure for emergency services to actually get to people. What happens if we build these condos and they go on fire? What's gonna happen? Are the fire trucks gonna be able to get through?
Just before you answer that one, Dave, and thank you, Veronica, for your questions. We have a related question which I think will supplement what you've said. In our ward, we are looking at intensification, especially higher buildings. As density increases, especially vertically, our emergency services are going to be required to respond in different ways from low-level responses. Considering the fire service, staffed and led by a group of motivated and dedicated staff, will not be able to respond to a high-rise incident properly. This development will cause unique financial and operational hardship for the town. How can we safely move forward?
Thank you very much for the question, Veronica. And first and formally, safety has always been my number one concern because of obviously the profession that I was in. With regards to the accident on the QEW, yeah, that was very tragic, and it was bad for Grimsby because of the gridlock that we had to live through for about 2.5 to 3 hours. But again, to cut the fence, firefighters, they use whatever means to get to. We used to put a ladder on either side of the fence to get over top of the fence when I worked for Burlington. We were on the QEW. Again, being a community that borders the QEW, I've seen this happen many, many times in Burlington, even when I was leaving work. The highway was jammed, and it's just part of being beside the QEW as a community. Also, with regards to the size of the building and for fires in the high rises, well, the buildings are all sprinkler system, standpipe system. With the fire department, unfortunately, that was always a question that we always got asked. Well, how high does your ladder go? The aerial truck or the platform truck, whatever you want to call it, it maybe goes to 7 stories. That's it. But firefighters are trained, which is called the high-rise procedure. We take equipment in with us. We hook up to the standpipe systems and on the floor that is below the fire. Anyways, I'm not going to get into it, but again, be reassured that firefighters are well trained to attack and fight high-rise fires. It's always a challenge. It's always a big challenge, but they are well trained. The kids' questions? Well, I'm very concerned about that too. I've been fighting for Nellis Road South, getting more sidewalks along Nellis Road South, along Dorchester, because again, there's issues with traffic, speeding, the amount of cars on the road. To me, the solution is getting the public, getting people off the roads. You have to have a sidewalk on one side, but again, for Regional Road 81, that's something that we have to have some conversation with the region to make that safe as possible.
So I'm not a firefighter, so I'm going to leave that one alone. I think Councillor Cadwell has addressed that. But I do want to say that I did make a request, a motion for council to make a school zone for both Governors and Nellis, because we have 2 kindergartens, or like nursery schools, on the corner of Main and Nellis, and the corner of Main and Governors. There's also there are no sidewalks on Governors, so it's not a matter of kids falling off the sidewalk; they're already in the road. And for most of Nellis, there's only a very small portion on one side that actually has a sidewalk. And I know we've done, after much pushing, we've done a study so that, a sidewalk will go in there. But I pushed to get a school zone there, and I was told, well, no, that's not a school zone, that's just a school route. As if somehow those 2 nursery schools are not, somehow don't qualify. And for me, I'm more worried about little kids, because they don't look where they're going, they just dart off in whatever which way catches their fancy. So, I'd like to see those two areas be a school zone. Now, I brought this up at council, and Councillor Ritchie said, well, aren't these private schools? Well, to my mind, I don't care if they're private or public. These are children, and we need to protect them.
I'd just like to address that quickly with regards to the school zones. I believe that our staff is going to be reporting and working with the Niagara region because, again, the properties are located on Regional 81. So that's something that I personally will be following up with too, because I think it's a great idea.
We have another brave soul who would like to ask his question. Sir?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. All right, I broke this down so I could try and get it out okay. I am a resident in Ward 2. I live down at the other end, but I've been living through things that are quite familiar to what's been going on down this end of town. So quite happy to share information on that one. So here's my question to the two councillors. I would like, and I think everybody would like to know, who you have spoken with about the proposed projects that are not town staff to find options that reflect the concerns of the residents. Everybody here has been Main Street West or Main Street East website has been posting them for years, and there's been lots and lots of talk about it, so that's not something that's a mystery. So who have you spoken to about these projects that are not town staff to find options that reflect residents' concerns and make sure that they get answers, and to help get support for opposing town planning plans for intensification and high density infill? I'll repeat it because I got it written down. Well, I know this is a meeting for this project, so you can address it specifically on this project, that's fine, or you can address it more as a more general, applying to other ones that have also been going on, Dave. And you know where I live, and we've talked about this, so I can keep going. I don't understand the puzzled look. Talk to it about this project, but in a general sense would be good.
I think to paraphrase that, if I may, do you actively seek outside planning opinions outside of the planning department? If so, who have you talked to, and what projects have you discussed, if any? And any next steps?
Yes, I do reach out for, I do my research by reaching out to sometimes other municipalities to see what they're doing, and just basically what's going on around us. That's about it. I don't reach out to any direct planning people that are not affiliated with the town of Grimsby. Sorry.
So you'd like to know who have I spoken with outside of our planning department? Well, I can tell you that it might have been about a year ago that I met Mr. Losani in his office. He had suggested we meet at the Edgewater, and I said, no, that's too rich for my blood. I didn't like the optics of that, even if I could afford to pay my own way. So I met with Mr. Losani, and he wanted to meet to talk about his proposal for down by the waterfront. And to my mind, I mean, that's a lost battle. There isn't, we can make refinements to what's happening at the waterfront, but in terms of density. I mean, that's already been decided. There isn't much of a fight we can put up there. That said, I did ask Mr. Losani about his plans for the Coles property, and I said, do you mind sharing them with me? So he shares it with me, and I see it's 7 stories. And I said, really? Like, do you realize that the community is going to come out with pitchforks when they see this? You know, nobody wants this. Nobody wants this overlooking their backyards. I got a little rough. I even said it's going to look like a tenement. But what we don't want is to look like, you know, Stony Creek with just apartment buildings all along Highway 8. Grimsby has too much beauty to have it wrecked. And you know, he was saying, well, I only make really nice buildings. Well, I'm sure he does make really nice buildings. It's just this building does not fit in that spot. And then he also pointed out the glass front as an homage to the existing Coles property. And I'm like, really? Like, you really think that's going to sell it? No, I'm sorry, it just doesn't cut it for me. I've met with Harley Valentine to talk about a 7-story property that's at Mountain. This one is, you know, while I express concerns about the height, there are aspects of the building that really make it an exceptional building. And so at this moment, I have to say I'm quite ambivalent about that proposal, because I think it has the potential to revitalize downtown. But then, you know, part of me goes, you know, is someone going to make the argument? You say, oh, 7 stories there, okay, so why can't 7 stories be okay somewhere else? So, but there are so many good things about that building. That's, as I say, I'm struggling with that one. I've spoken to Mr. DeSantis when we were trying to, as council, negotiate a better proposal for his project downtown. And this is after twice we were being told what was being offered was the best possible deal we could get. And we turned it down twice, and council did manage to get a commitment that was better, met the parking requirement for that property. So that's the time I've talked with him. I also, you know, for those of you who may not know this, but when I spent a lot of time in the School of Architecture when I was going to school at Carleton, and my very best friend who's waiting at home for me now, she's an architect. And I often ask her what her opinion is about certain technical aspects of buildings, because I want to make sure that what we're doing is not just throwing up junk, but you know, that we're doing things that are green, that, you know, are we offering you know, plug-ins for electric cars? Are we looking at green roofs? Are we doing the most is it a reflection of the most up-to-date thinking of what we call LEED architecture? So those are the people I talk to. I don't think there's anyone else, so there you go.
If I may, I'd just like to elaborate on, as Councilor Vardy brought up, about how we got to a good decision with Century Condos. I've never seen a planning process work the way that worked. That was well before COVID. We were in the council chambers. As councilors, we were in the middle. Mr. DeSantis had his team on one side, and the planning department was on the other side, and they went back and forth, and then they make their presentations to council. Well, that took about, I'm going to say at least 3 hours, three and a half hours. But anyways, that process to me worked very, very well, because we're able to come to a bit of a common ground on a type of development that you're not going to please everybody on every development, but I think the majority of people feel that the Century Condos worked well, but especially the process worked well. So I think that the whole, what I'm getting to is I believe and I know with council and our planning staff, our door is still open to have some discussions. Even though there's been some LPAT submissions, but you know, we can still come back to the table. And that's what I would like to see, that we can try to keep negotiating, save the taxpayers a lot of money.
We have a follow-up to your follow-up.
So just to follow up, I'm not sure I was really asking the question properly. So while I appreciate the conversations that Councillor Vardy's had with the various developers, part of the question that I had was, given that there's a bunch of people here today, and myself and I'm gonna guess a lot of people are kind of wondering, like, what can we do? We're not happy with what's going on. And given that you guys are our elected councillors who are representing us, and I would think advocating for us, can you tell us what you can do, or what you are doing, to reach out beyond what's been going on already, because it doesn't sound like much has come of it, to find help for the residents' concerns, to address the problems, and to support the residents on this development and similar ones that are coming down the line? Too wordy? Yeah, I know, I understand that. Yeah, that's fine. Help getting support for residents who are not okay with the current town direction and agenda.
Well, I think what for residents to get involved and to get updated is the town has our website has been brought up to a very good speed with regards to getting information in that. We've got other different Let's Talk Grimsby. So there are some services that are available going through Town Hall on our website to get yourself educated and to follow some types of development in that. Also, you can watch council meetings. And we're obviously through the COVID, we're Zoom right now, but when we get back into the chambers, I welcome people to come to the council meetings. We have a lot of public meetings that is mandated through the Planning Act and the Municipal Act that we have to host for developments too. So that's the best answer for now that I can give you.
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question correctly, but what I think the answer would be is that we need organizations like Save Main Street to mobilize the community and be supported with donations, and be supported with volunteer help. I'm sure there are planners in Grimsby, or people with a planning background in Grimsby who can, lend their support pro bono, because I don't think it's a question of are you getting enough information from the town, but it's like, in order to be effective, groups like Save Main Street need to be able to obtain the right kind of expertise, and that means either through donations or volunteers. And I know that's not maybe the yeah, that's what's going on already, but I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thought that we could get our planners to volunteer their time with organizations. I mean, that would be quite an interesting exercise. So, don't know if that answers your question, but.
We'll give you one more shot.
Okay, so the first answer from Councillor Cadwell was to go to the town website and look to gather information and that sort of thing. I've been part of living next to a development at the other end of Main Street where we got a crash course in education on communicating with the town. So we had both councillors over, you guys remember that? I won't go through the whole thing. You were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Met with the town, subsequent lots of emails, changes to the bill that went on, emails to the town, blowing us off, not answering our questions, asking more questions, finally no answers from the town, multiple emails to the new head of planning, no response, ask for follow-up from the town and council, no follow-up. So my question is, do you think that's okay? And if not, what can you do and will you do about that clear communication problem?
So I know of the frustration to which he speaks. And, you know, principally the concerns about flooding and agreements that were made that were then not enacted. We've
Send a question into the town, and they either blow you off or try, or they don't respond, and then what? Because we're being directed to ask the town not working with them, but make sure it's okay. So,
Send your question to me. I'll get you the answer.
Yeah, right, Dave.
Okay, good job, Dave.
Yeah.
So I have to say we failed you, and that's not okay. I tried, and I got lost in the quagmire that it was. You know, I'm happy to talk to you about it between you and I.
but it's more, that one's done, and in the book, there's not a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
So it's more for what's going on now, because other people have asked the same questions, not getting information, the town's not providing any transparency on it, so you guys are supposed to be, got our back, make sure that that's not the case.
It's a challenge.
Leanne, Bertie, I thank you, because you tried, kept someone by, kept talking to us. So, I know, all right?
I
5-4. 5-4, no more.
And Dave, you showed up the first day and you said, this cannot be right. And we never heard from you again. Emailed you, you never showed up, you never followed up. So, hey, you're happy to talk, but why aren't you coming by and helping? These people probably want to know the same thing. And it's all on record, man, before you start saying it's not true.
So we're going to continue this, Mr. Moderator?
Yeah, answer the first question.
Well, what I will give you my comments to, have you been flooded out now since the with the drainage that was put in there? Because we have to, as councilors, we have to go to the staff as the experts, whether it's public works, under drainage, we have to listen to them too.
Why,
But have you been flooded out?
why did you not reply to any of the emails or follow up with us on any of our
I replied to a number of your emails. I was at your house,
one?
but I was following it. I was following it with staff.
Why didn't you?
You know, before the sod was put down between your house and the property, what was there?
They on-grade lot that's now been raised. And Dave, you said you're against intensification, but you voted to rezone that property to higher coverage.
Thank you.
Bylaws. Hey,
Thank-
come on. If
no.
you guys gonna like run it the other way, let's make it a conversation, no?
Yes, and I believe that conversation has been,
Run its course.
has run its course at this meeting. I suggest to you that you take it up privately. We'll move on. We're running out of daylight. There's still time yet.
Sorry, everybody, that was meant to start constructing.
Is there a plan to improve infrastructure and services such as power, sewage, traffic / roads, and telecommunications before considering development with such a high-density building?
Thank you for the question. As developers come to town with their proposals, staff looks at through our asset management, our infrastructure, our sewer, our water, store management, how we can handle the extra load of what comes from development. So that's already in place. There's also forecast for development, what our infrastructure will be able to handle for the future. So yeah, they're doing their homework by seeing what is available. A lot of time, that's why we have development charges from developers. Is if we have to increase or enhance the infrastructure, it's done at their cost.
Nothing to add, other than that, I share residents' concerns because I know a lot of our infrastructure is fairly dated. Now, we do have an asset renewal plan, that's great, but I think the one that scares me the most is hydro. And do we have the capacity to continue to support some of the new building that we're seeing down by the waterfront? And as we move to electric cars, you know, that infrastructure is something that does worry me a little bit, yes.
Would you support a change to the voting structure in council in regard to development proposals from a simple majority vote to a 2/3 vote, so that you would require 6 votes for any development approval?
Like you have to ask me that question. I absolutely would support that, and actually I think that would be, I think too many votes have gone 5-4, and I think what's happening is it means there's a substantial part of Grimsby's population that just isn't being heard, isn't being recognized, and we're failing our citizens because of that. So yes, on development, the most important issue we're facing right now, absolutely I would support that.
That's a good question. I just reflect through democracy, and again, a majority vote, how it plays out. On development, it's always a very tense issue that we're dealing with. But again, it's any type of democracy, it's the majority.
So are you saying no?
So is that a no, Councillor
Yeah, is
Cadwell?
that a no or a yes?
I just support how we're doing it right now. No.
Where do we go from here? And in particular, with the 2 pending LPAC challenges. What can you do to stop these 2 proposals while the Heritage Conservation District study is underway?
Well, I think the first thing you could do is convince one of the 5 councillors that usually vote against these ideas to change their minds and support challenging these projects at LPAT.
I'll just say right now that I don't support those types of developments that we're having to deal with in Ward 2 here. Again, it's approximately 27 feet that's allowed. Again, that's under our zoning and our official plan, what it states. I will be adhering and supporting to our official plan. Thank you.
As will I. I'll support our official plan and the zoning that's in place.
The last question comes to me, and it's specifically asked of SaveMainStreet. As you may know, we are going to participate in these LPAT hearings, and there's 2 ways to do that. One is a party, and one is a participant. And I get these confused, so Roxanne can straighten me out. But as a party, we can contribute a deposition. In other words, other way around. Okay. As a participant, I always get it wrong. Now you see why I'm just the talking head. We will be submitting a detailed deposition, and we will be doing that probably tomorrow for the LPAT challenge to the Coles property. We were questioned here, will we obtain legal representation? Well, at this level, we do not need it. If we were to go the other way and become a full party to this, legal costs are estimated on this challenge, because we have investigated that, as being between $75,000 and $100,000. So basically the message with that is the guy with the biggest pocketbook is going to win. It's highly important that we as citizens get on these things early. Absolutely, the first hint of anything, be on the town. Be asking these people in this ward, if you're from other wards, you have other representation, what's going on, who's in charge, etc., etc. Because the old adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, works here. Because when we get to this point, there's very little that average people can do. We have to put our hopes in the tribunal, that they see the reasoning behind our arguments, but none of that is guaranteed. Can you contribute? Yes, you certainly can. We have a cash donations jar if you care to contribute that way, but you can also contribute by e-transfer to donations at SaveMainStreet.ca. Thank you, councillors, for your participation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and a good night.